Nintendo has kind of lost its magic, at least in my opinion, and to a lesser degree to you and a bigger degree to me, they've lost my love as a gamer. Now, look, if you're going down into the comments right now to say something like grifter or milking Nintendo drama or anything like that, I get it. I've made videos about Nintendo recently because they are currently the most relevant in a long line of companies who are actively going against their fans and users to weaponize nostalgia or FOMO or the sunken cost fallacy to convince those fans to buy their latest shiny gaming thing without question. But it's not the first time I've done something like this. I've called out Sony in the past for their horrible anti-consumer actions when they delisted Helldivers 2 from God knows how many countries, and I called out Xbox for their half-assed closure of the Xbox 360 store. I've even sold my latest generation consoles because the current generation doesn't feel as exciting or innovative as the last one did. And the last one didn't even feel that innovative aside from the Switch 1. So if insulting me for critiquing Nintendo and not blindly buying their latest plastic games toy makes you feel better, go ahead. For everyone else, let's talk about how Nintendo lost its magic and my love. My first ever experience with gaming was an NES. No, it's not because I'm that old. It was my mom's NES that she had won in a raffle at college. It had Punch-Out, Duck Hunt, Tetris, and of course, Super Mario Bros. And it was always a really special moment when we were allowed to get the Nintendo out and play some games. I fondly remember hooking it up to the back of the old CRT that I actually still use for my retro games and as a TV stand to this day. I remember changing it to channel 3 and just lighting up with excitement when the bell rang on Punch-Out or when the iconic Super Mario theme started to play. The Nintendo gaming experience was, and still is, a quintessential part of my gaming experience and is part of what formed my taste in games even now. Fast forwarding a few years and I was going over to my best friend's house to play Mario 64 and pod racing on the Nintendo 64. I mean, sure, the controller was made for a three-handed space alien, but as long as I could use it to aim at my enemies in GoldenEye, I didn't care. And even beyond that, the first music studio I ever recorded in had a GameCube in the lounge area just outside the booth, so while we were waiting for our turn to record, we could play Smash Bros. Even when I got a PS2 for Christmas, or after I saved up enough money to buy an original Xbox and fell in love with the Halo series, Nintendo was that one game company that I always came back to at some point. I even went out of my way to get every one of their consoles that I missed out on growing up for my collection. But over the course of the Switch 1's lifespan, I've begun to feel that draw and love to Nintendo less and less. Not because the games feel worse or because the hardware is bad, although the Switch 1's hardware objectively performs worse than a smartphone from like 3 years ago. No, I started to feel that draw diminish because the company behind the games and the hardware is just bad. Some people might even say cruel. Now, before diving into my first reason, let me get this out of the way right up front. I am against piracy. Always have been, always will be. I do, however, have some clarifiers to that, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But my first reason as to why I believe Nintendo is a bad company and why my love for them has diminished so much over the years is because of how they handle emulation. To be clear, however, I do believe that things like the Yuzu piracy situation that cost Nintendo millions of dollars and resulted in countless players playing Tears of the Kingdom before it even came out on the Switch was absolutely unacceptable and definitely should have resulted in the company in question being sued and or shut down. Yuzu got what was coming to them for propagating piracy on such a massive and very public scale. But as a result of this, we also lost Citra. Now, what was Citra? Citra was a 3DS emulator, and its demise alongside Yuzu was pretty unfortunate because almost exactly 1 year prior to all of this happening, the 3DS eShop was shut down, and countless eShop exclusive games were just lost to anybody who didn't buy them when the shop was still open. This meant that the only way to get these lost games and play them was through ROM sharing and emulation. Now, this is going to be where I clarify my thoughts on what is and isn't piracy. When I can purchase a game directly and legally from a company that is still actively supporting said game, and I choose to find a way to download it for free and circumvent the legal purchasing method, that is piracy. You are stealing a game. However, if a company no longer supports the game, no longer sells the console that this game is only available on, and they aren't offering any kind of backwards compatibility or emulation on their current systems to run that game, how you get that game and play it is completely up to you. That's my belief. Feel free to disagree with me. It's completely fine if you do, but if I can emulate something like PT for the PS4 without lining the pockets of a scalper on eBay who wants to charge $500 for a 12-year-old console with one rare game on it, I'm going to take that method any day of the week. Alongside killing off Yuzu because of its rampant use in piracy, Nintendo also killed off an emulator that allowed gamers who missed out on some great eShop exclusives to still play them. It was a great piece of software for preservation, but the piracy that took place over on the Yuzu side of things pretty much ended both pieces of software. Now, you might say, oh, well, Nintendo said that emulation is bad. They literally said so, and they also said that it stifles creativity. I hate to break it to you, but Nintendo uses emulation themselves and have done for a long time. Let me ask you something. Do you like playing Ocarina of Time on your Switch through Nintendo Online? Well, guess what? That's emulation. Do you own a Switch 2 and you want to play your Switch 1 games? That is also emulation. Nintendo even retracted their statement against emulation when it was made abundantly clear that they were actively using it while crusading for the extinction of every other emulator. In this area, I feel like Nintendo is more than happy to just let obscure games like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers be forgotten and trapped forever on something like the NES, but the moment that someone tries to emulate it, they will come down on that person with all the might of their legal team. It's really disheartening, and it's the first thing I started to notice that began to chip away at my love for Nintendo. But here's the thing, not everyone cares about emulation, whether it be for game preservation purposes or otherwise. Maybe it's just not your thing. Okay, fine, that's totally fair. But what about modding? Granted, I am aware that people who don't care about emulation probably don't care to mod their games either. But I'm sure that you like watching YouTube, right? Stick with me, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm fully aware that you probably don't care to try and modify your own games on the Nintendo Switch, but you're watching me here on YouTube, which means you do like watching YouTube videos. So would you enjoy watching people play single-player games like Breath of the Wild in ways that you've never seen before, thanks to mods? I know I did, and honestly, it's fun to watch videos like that with any game. Skyrim, Halo, and yes, even Breath of the Wild. But in 2022, a YouTuber by the name of Waikuteru, sorry if I completely butchered that name, had their channel hit with multiple Nintendo takedowns across numerous videos, which resulted in copyright strikes. Why? Well, because they were showcasing the Second Wind mod for Breath of the Wild, a single-player game from 2017, harming no one. I can totally understand Nintendo wanting to go after people who are modifying multiplayer games because those modded games mean that you're not getting a fun and fair experience across the board. But I feel like you should be able to mod single-player games where you are not interacting with anyone. And honestly, modification on those games is what keeps them relevant and fun. Look at Skyrim. I mean, can you believe that Skyrim can look like this in 2025 when it came out all the way back in 2011? And I mean, hell, even if there are bad actors modifying Nintendo's multiplayer games and ruining the experience for everybody else, there's an easy way to separate those bad actors from those who just want to have fun and do some mods and homebrew in single-player games. Just do what Xbox did. Charge a fee to access a developer mode on your console that's sandboxed away from the main OS, and let those in that dev mode have at it. Then it's just a matter of banning the accounts of anyone who tries those mods in a public or non-dev mode setting. Simple as that. Don't go after YouTubers for harmlessly modding single-player games and showing it off to fans. But the thing is, this isn't the first time that Nintendo's gone after YouTubers. This time was a bit different because the creator didn't play their game exactly how Nintendo wanted, but this is the same company who also tried to push the Nintendo Creator Program, a program that forced creators to share revenue with Nintendo for any videos that featured their IP, even if Nintendo had no hand in the creation of the video, the channel, or the community behind the channel. Oh hey look, is this a game that we already sold you for $60? Well, because you love it enough to make a video about it, I'm sure you won't mind if you pay us to make that video as well, right? But the thing is, We did mind. We minded enough that Nintendo actually backed off and shelved that, frankly, stupid idea. And these two things were the second and third reasons why I started to lose my love of Nintendo. And as a content creator, this also hit very close to home. But the last straw for me personally, even before the Nintendo Switch came out, was the way Nintendo treats their fans. People like me who have grown up with their games, who have loved their IPs for literal decades, people who are the reason Nintendo is where it is. They treat us like shit. For example, the number of fan passion projects that Nintendo has destroyed is insane. They're even suing Palworld right now because it's too similar to their Pokemon games, which frankly have been crap since Let's Go Pikachu. And yes, I went with Let's Go Pikachu. Like, hey, you want an Ocarina of Time game in the style of Link to the Past? Me too, but we better not talk about any possible fan projects like that because Nintendo will shut them down faster than a first-time PC builder who shorted something out in their system. Just out of curiosity, you ever hear about Valve going after the Black Mesa project? Or what about id Software going after any Doom clone ever? No, of course you haven't, because these are studios who love and appreciate their community. But it gets worse. What if the soundtrack to Ocarina of Time or Super Mario Sunshine is your jam, and you just want to listen to it? Well, there isn't really an official way to do it. It's not out on Apple Music or Spotify. The only ways you used to be able to do it was with CDs, but good luck finding those without them being scalped on eBay. And so because Nintendo keeps their soundtracks locked away in their Goomba safe vault, a YouTuber called Gilvasunner took to the task of providing these songs to the masses with no goals of monetization. There were no ads on their YouTube channel, no sponsors or anything like that. They were just trying to share these amazing pieces of art with the world. You know what that got them? 3,500 blocked videos and a terminated YouTube channel. Like, come on, guys, you're not gonna share any of this stuff and then you're gonna take an entire channel down just because they want to actually share the art that you created with the world? Like, come on, this is not Gary Bowser we're talking about. You know, Gary Bowser, the mod chip guy, the guy you also arrested at gunpoint, extradited to the US, sent to jail for 40 months, threw a fit over when he got let out after 14 months because of his good behavior, and who you also slapped with a $14 million fine so that he, at the age of 54, will be paying you for the rest of his life with a 30% cut of his total income. No, not him. This was just a content creator who wanted to share your fun, light, joy-filled music with the rest of the world for the sake of easy access and preservation among your dedicated fans. Also, yes, the Gary Bowser thing is real. I don't condone his actions at all because it resulted in tons of piracy, but I do feel like the punishment didn't quite fit the crime, especially when you look at the history of things like Napster, for example, which in my opinion was way worse in terms of damages to profit, but I'm not one of Nintendo's lawyers. I can't sleep at night for different reasons. I guess if I really wanted to boil it down, my point here is that if you love Nintendo, it's a one-sided relationship. To them, you're a number on a spreadsheet, and hell, you might even just be a rounding error. You are only slightly more beneficial than the glass they used for the windows in their office buildings. You're maybe even less useful since you actually have the ability to have an opinion instead of just mindlessly doing what they want you to do. And what they want you to do is buy whatever their newest console is. I think what really bums me out the most is that if you look through Nintendo's history, each generation of their consoles seemed to be like a shift in gaming. The NES, of course, saved the North American games market, but the game quality for that thing was insane for its time. The NES to the SNES saw amazing graphical improvements from 8-bit to 16-bit. The same thing goes for the Nintendo 64, bringing 3D 64-bit graphics to the home. I mean, hell, it was named for its 64-bit graphics, and it was the first on the market to do that. The GameCube, of course, improved on the N64's graphical prowess while also finally adopting optical media instead of cartridges, and it also introduced games whose graphics and art style still hold up to this day. I'm looking at you, Wind Waker. And then there was the Wii, which in my opinion was a generation-defining piece of hardware that defied the gamer stereotype and brought gaming to the average consumer. The Wii U, on the other hand, was a bit of a commercial flop due to its marketing, but it did introduce HD to Nintendo games, and it laid the groundwork for the Switch by giving players a tablet screen that they could play their games on. And then when the Switch came out, it refined that tablet into being the entire console that you could play on the go, but you could still hook it up to the TV and play. But what about the Switch 2? What did the Switch 2 do? The Switch 2 was an experiment to see how far Nintendo can push their fans. Because I mean, look, obviously with all these graphics improvements for the Switch 2, you're going to want a remastered version of your favorite Zelda game from the last Switch to take advantage of it, right? Well, that'll be $10. The same thing goes for the tech demo that, by the way, they didn't include and just shows you how the console works. But what if you happen to want the newest entry in the casual, fun-for-the-whole-family racing game that previously, until this new release, Nintendo hadn't touched for almost 10 years? Well, that'll be $80. Why? Well, because they worked really, really hard on it, guys. Never mind the fact that Baldur's Gate is $60, Expedition 33 is $50, and Helldivers 2 is $40. And by the way, Forza Horizon 5, another open-world racing game that lets you team up with friends, explore the map, and race against them, is $60. $20 less. Look, will the Switch 2 sell? Yes. Will Nintendo fans come to this video and ravenously justify their purchase by angrily insulting, incorrectly psychoanalyzing, and mindlessly harassing me? Also yes, but am I wrong? I personally don't think so. Obviously, confirmation bias. But no, seriously, I don't think so, because many companies have been going down this anti-consumer route for years. But back when I bought my Switch, I thought that Nintendo was actually doing something cool, and I was excited to see what games would actually hit this, at the time, fairly innovative and new platform. I even defended the lack of initial games because I was still running my rose-tinted goggles in overdrive. But after so many years of fan abuse, anti-consumer practices like saying you can brick the Switch 2 in your EULA, and also adding that same clause to the Switch 1's EULA, and also making it extremely clear that people who pay money for your hardware and games will never actually own the thing that is physically in their hands, I'm done. Say what you want in the comments. I've learned to stay out of the comment section when it comes to my gaming videos, but that's about it. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm not going to really be engaging in comments on this one because I know how bad they're going to be. But if you did like this video, definitely make sure to subscribe. I've got quite a few things coming down the pipe, and I hope that you're going to be there to see them. Either way, thanks again for being here. Hope to see you in the next video. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.